All right. Back here on the Locked On Diamondbacks crossover with Locked On Padres host Javier Reyes. And now it's time to draft Javi because we're drafting the best team on trade deadline targets. You did have a little discussion before this podcast about clarification. Are we drafting a team based off guys who we think is going to be moved at the deadline? No, we're just going to draft the trade deadline targets to make the best team. This way we could talk about the best players who might be on the deadline. And then segment number 3, we're going to be running through the honorable mentions, the guys that we didn't talk about. So we're going to hit a whole bunch of trade deadline targets here today. But as always, Javi, I came prepared with my quarter, and I ask you the question, sir. Heads or tails?
Tails again, man. As always, let's do it.
Whew. All right.
This should be good.
I don't have my mic stand today.
This is going to be great. I can tell already.
For the YouTube audience, it is heads. What? Ugh. Millard won today. Oh, man, you hate to see it. I think we're just going to keep it simple. We'll just go back and forth. If we ever add a third host, maybe we'll do a sneak draft, but just us two. It's probably just the easiest to just go back and forth. So the criteria for this draft today, we're not going to do a whole lineup. These are the positions we're drafting. 1 starter, 1 reliever, 1 corner infielder, 1 middle infielder, 2 outfielders, a DH, and a wild card. So 8 positions total. It's almost like a little fantasy baseball team that we're drafting here. So I have this whole strategy of building the best team possible. I'm not, the first player that I'm going to draft here is not even the best player among trade deadline targets, but I have a whole plan here of building the best team possible. So with my number 1 overall selection, this might seem kind of a surprise. I'm going with my corner infielder spot to play first baseman for me on my team. I'm going from the Chicago Cubs, Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger is currently having a pretty nice bounce back season for the Chicago Cubs after looking like a dude who might be out of Major League Baseball by the age of 27, 28. He's currently batting over 300, has a near 900 OPS. He's got double-digit home runs and steals. Like Cody Bellinger might just be back as maybe not MVP candidate, but he might just be back as a all-star level player. A guy that could be a top 3 or 4 guy in your lineup. So Cody Bellinger having this resurgent kind of season, I think, with the Cubs kind of flailing, just having a whole bunch of dudes. Like, I think the Cubs should maybe be huge sellers at the deadline because they have a whole bunch of pieces that would be perfect for other playoff teams. I think Cody Bellinger could be someone they just slide into that number 4 lineup that could do damage both at the plate and on the bases.
I mean, it's a good strategy. I'm going to critique it a tad. Number 1, First of all, it should be mentioned that I might get killed in this draft because I was drafting. I put together my notes based on who I just thought would be traded, and then whoever got the most people right. So as a result, listeners, I have a lot of random players on my list, like Kyle Finnegan. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, oh yeah, they'll definitely get traded. So that's how I drafted. So I might get killed here, but I will say, you killed me when I took a couple weeks ago Cody Bellinger in our other draft. When I was talking about most surprising players, you were like, yeah, okay, whatever, man. He's better than nothing. You killed me. And everybody who listens to that episode, he's laughing. So he knows you killed me for that. And look at him now getting here late. This man is slugging .524. I would have drafted him as an outfielder just because I think he offers a little bit there defensively. But even still, I think you also made a good chance. Good point here, because there's not necessarily that many corner infielders that are that spicy on the market, maybe compared to the outfielders. So I do, what's it called? I do emphasize with that. So I think it's a great pick. It was probably going to be one of my first picks too, because I just wanted to keep with the bit. Cody Bellinger, shouts to this guy being back. He's almost definitely getting traded too, because of the contract. It's only like a 1-year deal. What team isn't going to want him? And he just bought him. He extended his career, man. Like, this guy looked like he might be out of baseball the way he was hitting. I mean, he had a 28 WRC plus that 1 year. And then last year it was like a 70. Like he looked cooked. And for the Dodgers to give up on you usually says a lot. But in this case, he didn't. So I think it's a great first overall pick, sir.
Yeah, for the Cubs, I think they should be sellers, but someone like Cody Bellinger, who's only 27 years old and having this bounce back season, I think the Cubs should maybe actually keep him and maybe extend it for maybe 3 to 5 years and just see. I mean, you could always trade him at the next deadline or, a year after that if your team's not good. But if you do sign him and he has another good season like this next year and your team sucks, then he would probably have even more value as a player. So I actually think it would be smart for a team like the Cubs to sign Cody Bellinger and keep him for a little bit, but I don't know if they'll actually do that. But who do you think is your first pick then, Javier Reyes?
My first pick is based on just overall positional scarcity. Again, because it doesn't look like we are going to have that many really juicy guys at corner infield, at least from what I've seen. There might be some player that I just forgot. It's totally possible. You can one-up me. But I'm going with Jeimer Candelario of the Washington Nationals, which may be a little surprising. In a lot of ways, but he's been really good this year and no one talks about it because it's the Nationals, right? Like nothing has been all that great for the Nationals, but 121 WRC plus, he's a capable defender, 2.8 F4. If you're looking for a player to say maybe the Yankees, you got some questions over at third, that might be a fix for them. Maybe, I don't know, some other teams, maybe the Mariners a tiny bit if they give up on Suarez. I think that he's probably going to get traded because the Nationals, everyone's on the board. Like I mentioned earlier, I had guys like Kyle Finnegan that I was prepared to draft in this because it's almost definite that Carl Edwards Jr., who sounds like a NASCAR racer, guys like that. But I'm going to go with this dude for now because I just think that he's a pretty solid player. That these are the type of players that smart teams grab and all of a sudden they were the actual best acquisitions of the deadline. Like what the Braves did a couple years ago where they just went out and acquired, who was it, like Adam Duvall, Eddie Rosario, those guys, and they ended up winning a World Series. So I'm going to go with Candelario. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty smart move. I think that's a great point by you. I think because, you take Candelario first pick, like you just see it's like that's not sexy at all when you have so many other stars on the deadline. But like it's never the stars that make the difference at the deadline. Yeah, but to your point, it's never the stars at the deadline that make the difference when you make the deep postseason run. It's always those Steve Pierces and the Solairs and the Eddie Rosarios who hit the big clutch home runs, late in games of the playoffs. So we're going to be like, oh my God, who acquired Stroman or Scherzer or Ohtani at the deadline? But then it's going to be like Candelario that hits the walk-off home run in Game 7 of the World Series. Him, which is just crazy. So it was like a 1-year flyer that the Nats took. He's been playing really well, and this is someone that hasn't really had like a fantastic career. I mean, if you look at Candelario's like last few years, like outside 2020, he hasn't done much. So this could be a nice little sell high for the Nationals on a Candelario. But that's an interesting first pick, Javi. I don't know if I would have gone there. It's interesting.
I feel great about it.
I would have done that personally, but I'm not.
That's why I prefaced everything. I'm cushioning the blow.
I'm not mad at all with your strategy. I think for my next pick, I could get really wild here if I want to. I don't, I think for my next pick, I'm going to go to the outfield. I think I'm going to go to the outfield here. And there's a couple guys that I could go with. I'm still kind of debating between the stats. This one guy has missed a little bit of time this year, so I want to check in on how many home runs he has. He's had a solid year. I actually think I'm going to go with a former one of your guys from the San Diego Padres who's having a pretty fantastic season right now, just kind of having a really good year out of nowhere with the New York Mets. He's shockingly been one of their more positive contributors. He's got near double-digit home runs and steals, over 800 OPS, batting near 270, just having a really good all-around player. He's not going to, you're not going to be like, oh my God, breaking news, we just acquired him at the deadline. It'll probably give you more Candelario vibes, but I'm going with Tommy Pham with my next pick, who I just like. There's some other outfielders that I had on here that you could maybe choose over Tommy Pham, but I think he's potentially having the best season, arguably the best season of those outfielders. He's a little bit older, but he is a proven veteran. He's had some really good seasons in his past, so it's not a total surprise when he puts up a near 2020 season. He's done it before. So I think of the ceiling of these outfielders, I think Tommy Pham might have the highest. He might also have the lowest floor, but because of that volatility with his ceiling, I think I'm going to take Tommy Pham with my second overall in this draft.
I like that. It was good.
Thanks.
That was probably my next
I don't
pick
know
as
if I
well.
like it.
Okay. Because look, I had to look, Pham just so quietly having a great year. And it's just so weird that like after being quote unquote a bust for like multiple teams, right? Like he wasn't very good on the Reds. He was very much not good on the Padres, particularly his second half. When he got there, he was hurt and everything. And somehow he's been their most consistent offensive player, literally all year. 128 WRC plus, leads the team. He's got a good slash line. He still has always had a good eye at the plate, with not just his walk rate, but the fact that he doesn't swing at bad stuff. So he's a great Candelario type of candidate. I agree. I think that he's definitely getting moved. It's the one that makes the most sense. The Mets are even more out of it than the Padres, seemingly at this deadline. To be honest with you, it feels like they're even more out. And I understand it. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's a great pick, man. Pham has been awesome. And what a weird arc that this man has had. You know what I mean? Like this guy has had a very weird, kind of go of things, I guess you could say. So, hey, I love the pick, man. Very well done.
Oh, thank you, man. Who do you have for your next pick?
See, part of me wants to be an absolute jerk and cheat. And by cheat, I mean picking Juan Soto of the San Diego Padres. There hasn't really been any inclination, though, however, that he's going to be traded. This is all conspiracy and me based on the fact that I think it's weird that they traded their future for him, didn't extend him in the offseason, but then they were willing to shell out money to 4 separate players, making me think if things go awful, that they could potentially trade him if they wanted to. And that's what their thinking was. But I'm not going to be a jerk and I'm not going to do that. Because I just think I just don't know how likely that is. So instead, I'm going to go with a feel good, one that makes everyone happy, one who, if you're a fan of players having personality, especially superstar caliber players, for whatever period of time they were superstars, this has been your guy. He's very funny. He had an alter ego on Instagram and somehow having a really good season for an underperforming team, but even still has been very good. And I'm going to go with him, I think, at DH. I imagine he's only played DH this year. I'm pretty certain of that. I need to look at that, though, just to be sure. I'm going to check that real quick.
And you know it's DH. You can put it's almost like a wild card. You can put anyone at DH, really.
Well, I checked just in case, but I'm going with Andrew McCutchen of the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Okay.
I think it's possible he doesn't get traded. I wouldn't have drafted him in our trade likelihood version of this, just because I think the Pirates might just be one of those teams that are like, screw it, he makes fans happy, we're going to keep him. Like, I think that's the type of vibe that he has. But if he were to get moved, he'd go for a decent amount. And it's also just good vibes. He's been very good this year. Like I said, somehow like one of the most consistent players on the team, absent Jack Sawinski. He's got 10 home runs. He's got 9 steals, batting .267, 378 on base, 121 WRC plus. Give me Andrew McCutchen. Even if he doesn't get traded, because I think it's unlikely, for the vibes alone. Shouts to my guy. It's just so cool that he has had his best season in a while after getting back to Pittsburgh. Just really good signing by them.
Yeah, and I respect you not taking Soto because, like, I had softly written in, like, in very light pencil, like Nolan Arenado and Goldschmidt when I was doing this exercise. But I was like, Cardinals are probably going to be sellers, but I don't think they're going to be trading. I don't think they're doing a fire sale where they're trading all their star players away. Like, they might trade away some of their fringe pieces, maybe, some other guys that we might discuss during this draft that they could trade. So I don't want to spoil anything too late. I don't think they're going to trade the Goldschmidts and the Arenados. I could see some other players on that team, some guys that have been struggling, some impending free agents potentially get moved. But that's why I appreciate you not putting Soto on the list, because you could just fill this up with superstars if you really want to and just get crazy. Like, all of a sudden, Mike traded out a Cookie Betts or trade deadline targets too, but it's like that's not very realistic. So I totally appreciate you doing that. And Andrew McCutchen, I mean, just if your team acquired Andrew McCutchen, he's 36, but you're still going to be like, man, I get to watch Andrew McCutchen in my favorite team's uniform. He might be past his prime, but he's still putting up a pretty good season. And he's just one of those dudes, one of the guys that when he was in his prime was one of the faces of baseball. So even though he's a little bit past his prime, just seeing him in your favorite team's uniform, I just think would be a really gratifying experience. Like, as a Lakers fan, seeing like Carmelo Anthony in my, in a Lakers uniform last year, I thought it was a lot of fun as well. So I think McCutchen going somewhere would be a lot of fun for that fan base. So let me put McCutchen down in your little draft. Next up for me, I'm actually going back to the outfield as well. No one has taken a pitcher yet. I think that's because we both think the starting pitcher trade deadline targets are just super duper deep this year, and it's a little bit more scarce than some of the other positions. So I'm also going back to the outfield. I've already taken Cody Bellinger to be my infielder. Got Tommy Pham to be outfielder number 1. Outfielder number 2, I'm going with the guy from the Boston Red Sox who was acquired at a deadline 2 years ago to help the Atlanta Braves. We just mentioned him earlier, but I'm taking Adam Duvall, who has been a little bit in and out the lineup this year with some injury, but when he's played in those 35 games, 850 OPS, he's been a power guy. He plays solid defense as well. I think he's been a real middle of the lineup contributor for the Boston Red Sox. I just think he's a guy who, yeah, he's kind of a little Adam Dunnish. He might hit you like 220, 230 in terms of a batting average, but he also might hit like 30 to 40 bombs in a season and have that little Dunn, Joey Gallo-ish. I don't think he's probably as bad as like a Joey Gallo in terms of his splits, but he's probably got a little Adam Dunnish in him. So I think someone like Adam Duvall, who plays solid defense and could just provide you pop in the middle of your lineup, especially from, I'm pretty sure Adam Duvall's a lefty as well. Nope, I take that back. He's a righty. So he could definitely provide you some pop from the right side of the plate if you need that.
Yeah. Love it. Pretty solid. Shouts to Adam Duvall. Great guy when he was traded to the Braves. Did some good stuff. So what is your team currently right now?
My team currently is Cody Bellinger playing first. And I got Tommy Pham and Duvall in the outfield.
Okay. Not bad. I'm a fan of it.
Thank you. I'm curious to see how you build your roster now. Are you going to be the first person to take a picture here? What's going on? Where are we going, Javi, with your next pick? Are you just going to keep tailing me? Just going to keep copying me every pick?
I'm going to go with, I just want to make sure I'm not like crazy. Yeah. I'm going to put McCutchen at outfield for now. He's mostly played DH this year, but we're going to cheat. Again, we're going to cheat here. I'm going to get my DH. And since there really isn't, again, you can kind of have anyone for DH, but I'm going to pick someone who's basically been purely a DH, and that's the lone offensive good player on the Oakland A's. That's Brent Rooker, former Padre for like half a second, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was a Padre for half a second. I forgot. I'm like 99% sure he was in the Chris Paddock trade or something like that. I don't know exactly, but Brent Rooker hits for power, man. And sometimes that's what you want. Sometimes those guys can get hot later down the aisle, down the year. He has had a little bit of some questions where if he's just mashing on fastballs down the middle, you know what I mean? Like that might be something that doesn't translate. If you are to trade for him, I think he'd be a risky guy to trade for because a lot of his power is coming from maybe capitalizing on pitcher mistakes. With Brent Rooker, which is not bad. It's just that it shows you, don't be surprised if, facing some tougher competition, he falls off a little bit, especially with Oakland. Maybe he just looks better being in that lineup, but I'm going to go with it because I don't necessarily love any other pure DHs that are left right now. McCutchen being the other one, but I'm putting him in the outfield. So that's my next pick.
That's very fair. Brent Rooker was definitely on my list. I think he should have been the Oakland A's representative in the All-Star game. Brent Rooker has had a really solid season. He's provided the pop. He's got like a near OPS. I mean, I don't have a ton of Brent Rooker thoughts, unfortunately, because he's not someone that I watch on a daily basis. And I don't think most baseball fans probably have a ton of thoughts on Brent Rooker. But believe me, if your team acquired him, just like he's in that Candelario mode where you probably won't know much about him, but then you acquire him and you'd be like, dang, this dude hit some bombs. Dang, this dude's kind of clutch, and he's actually like a solid everyday role player. So I think Brent Rooker would actually make someone happy, even though you saw that ticker come across your trade deadline, like, oh, my team acquired Brent Rooker. Like, I don't even know who that is. Like, you might not even realize who Brent Rooker is. So go look up that name. If your team acquires him, you're definitely going to be happy as a Major League Baseball fan. So Rooker goes number 6 in this draft. Next up for me at number 7, I don't know if I want to go DH here. I have a guy in mind, but spiritually, I don't know. Just because his team is pretty good, I don't know if his team would want to move him, but he is an impending free agent. So I might just keep him on the back burner. Maybe we talk about him later. So I'm going to go with my middle infield spot right now. And we all talk about his teammate, Shohei Ohtani, being moved. But this guy is also a dude that could play multiple positions anywhere in the infield, pretty much anywhere in the outfield. He used to be a top prospect by my team, the Arizona Diamondbacks. He had a breakout season last year with the Cincinnati Reds before I think he was traded to your team potentially, the San Diego Padres. I'm going with Brandon Drury here, who can just do pretty much of everything. And once again, just having like another good season overall. Like last year, I didn't know the season that Drury put up was kind of a fluke because it was kind of like he kind of had like a career year, like year 7, year 8, which is kind of rare. But once again, Brandon Drury's having over 800 OPS. He's batting nearly 280. He's got almost 15 home runs. He kind of does a little bit of everything. And after coming off a season where he hit nearly 30 home runs and had almost 90 RBIs, having another season like this, and he's only 30 years old. So we could actually be watching the upswing of Brandon Drury's career. Maybe this is where he starts to plateau. Maybe he gets another 10% better, and then all of a sudden he's like a 270, 800 OPS guy for the next 3 to 4 years. And he can actually be a true cog in the middle of your lineup who can play like 6-7 different positions on the team, pretty much outside of pitcher and catcher. So Brandon Drury, I'm taking right here with my number 7 overall pick in the draft.
Hey man, good pick. It was going to be my next pick, so you swooped him up from under me. I mean, former Padre again.
Like how
another former Padre. We are. I mean, look, there's going to be some weird ones. And again, it is worth mentioning for listeners that the deadline is still like, a little bit days out. It's getting close, and it's going to be what a lot of our content is based on, I feel, for the next week or so. But you never know, right? Like a day or two from now. Yeah, exactly. Like a day or two from now, there might be some other guy who's on the block and gets talked about more that we're not totally familiar with, right? Like we're only going based off of what we think is probably likely to happen, or like the consensus trade deadline candidates. You know what I mean? Because like again, with my conspiracy theory on Juan Soto and what you were saying with Arenado and Goldie, so that could have been a fun way to do that. Good pick. Next up for me, I am going to finally, I think, sort of maybe just take the damn starting pitcher. I think it's about time.
Okay.
I think
just do it.
I just do it.
It's deep. There's some elite pitchers available this deadline.
I know that's the problem, is that like I'm wondering if I should even draft one, because I think I can. You know what? I'm gonna go Javi mode. I'm gonna take a guy who is severely underperformed, but I'm almost convinced, whether it be through memeage or just my eyeballs, that this man is pulling a James Harden. He does not want to be there anymore. And as soon as you get him out, he's going to let loose. Not necessarily be a superstar all-star. He's never been like a superstar caliber player, just a very good player. He's certainly superstar in terms of fame. I'm going to go with Tim Anderson of Chicago White Sox. I think that this is a guy that many have called a batting average merchant, that he's just ground balls and all that, but he does have speed. He's been pretty heinous, is the problem, which is why I think he might not get traded, because usually this isn't like the NBA. You can't just like, throw in the towel and stink it up and still get traded based off past performance. But the way I look at it, this is a guy who's hit 300 basically like every year the past 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. His glove has been poor, but so has the team in general. And I really, really do think that this is the rare case where I don't want to look totally at stats. I just want to look at that situation's terrible, and the team's been terrible outside of Luis Robert, basically. His 144 WRC plus, he's been great, but I'm just kind of looking at, I think he wants out. And I think that whole meme and that picture from early on in the year when he was, what they were like, oh, what did he say here to this player? I think it was to Jose Abreu, like, oh, I want to get out of here. And again, he has been heinous, but maybe he just gets moved. Again, 300 batter ever since 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. He's a 4 to upper 4s player, win player at his best. Maybe a team says we'll give up nothing for him. And I think given that the White Sox haven't been managed very well lately, they're the type of team to sell low on a player, I think. So I'm going to go with the White Sox, Tim Anderson, just because it's fun. Might not get traded because he's been that bad, but I do think that if a team can just super buy low on a guy and a team be dumb enough to sell low on a guy, I think it's the White Sox.
I absolutely love that pick. He was going to be my next pick at DH just because I love the undervaluedness of Tim Anderson right now. He's having a really down season, but if you look at like him the last few years, the on-off splits with Tim Anderson when he's healthy and playing for the White Sox, like the White Sox are like a team that could win 95 games when Tim Anderson is healthy. And then when he's not healthy, they're basically like a 70-win team or like a 65-win ball club. Like, it's night and day when he's on the field for Tim Anderson. And this year, obviously, he's been really bad, as you discussed, but that's why I think he's the perfect buy low candidate for a team. Give him that change of scenery, bring him in, and maybe he just turns back the clock where he's just the 300 hitter guy, because you really haven't seen, like, it just hasn't been that Tim Anderson this year. He hasn't been able to run as much, and that's partly because he's not ever on base because of how bad he's been. But this is a guy who can, if you gave him, because he's the most games he's played in the season is 153 back in 2018. That was before he really popped. But Tim Anderson at his best could be like a 20 home run, 30 stolen base guy that hits you 300, and it just someone at the top of your lineup that's wreaking havoc against opposing pitchers. Obviously, he's struggling right now, but he's still not like super old. He's 30 years old. So, and with how much time he's missed recently, I think he's a guy who's a little bit more fresh than most 30-year-olds we see on the trade deadline market. So I'm actually totally mad that you sniped that pick from me. So that kind of means that I might be putting my DH on the back burner for a little bit. Did you take Anderson with your middle infield?
Yeah, I'm taking him with middle infield. Get that done.
Okay, get that done. Okay, so maybe I do want to just knock out the DH right now, because I just kind of want to make you pick the first pitcher off the board. I want you to take the first starting pitcher. I don't know if I want to take it. And I don't know. I guess for wild card, we could put anyone in that wild card position, huh? It doesn't even have to be a position player. I totally forgot about the wild card. So maybe
I totally forgot about it too.
Maybe
I totally forgot about it. Yeah, I totally forgot.
That wild card could really be the big swing piece in this.
We totally forgot about our own rules. Go ahead.
You know what? But I'm just going to go back to the pitcher market. I could take one of Tim Anderson's teammates here. Because I thought you were going to take someone. I thought you were going to take a pitcher from Tim Anderson's White Sox squad. There's two pitchers really you could take. One's a guy who's struggling, but we all consider like a tier 1 pitcher. But I don't know how likely he is to be moved at this deadline. The second guy in the rotation, I think, has a very strong chance to be moved. But I'm going to take neither one of those guys right now. The guy I'm actually going to take, because I just love messing with Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres, so I'm actually going to take a Padre as my first pitcher off the board. This is a man who I think still has that stink on him from his first season with San Diego, but if you look at his first half versus second half splits, he was a 4.99 ERA in the first half, a 3.24 ERA in the second half, and basically 3 of the last 4 years he's pitched under a 3.5 ERA. He's having a really strong season this year. Bring me home Blake Snell, lefty starter. Snell, not a ton of strong lefties out there in the Major League Baseball world on the market. Blake Snell comes into this season currently with the best hits per 9 in the National League, a sub-3 ERA. He's got almost 140 strikeouts at the time of us recording. Blake Snell, I'm taking as the most coveted starting pitcher that you want on the deadline. But honestly, there's so many elite starting pitchers at the deadline. You could tell me there was 3 other guys you would take before Blake Snell. I wouldn't even be mad at you. But because we're doing a crossover Lockdown Padres, I got to take Blake Snell as my starting pitcher for this team.
Yeah, I mean, he's great, right? He's been great. Strikeout rate over 40%, basically over his last 9 starts. ERA under 1. He is catching fire at the perfect time, as if he knows and wants to be traded. His value is through the roof. He's been excellent, and he's won a Cy Young before. He's done it big on the big stage, obviously famously in the World Series that they pulled him from. I think that that's probably the best available out of the rumored starting pitchers to be traded, I'd say, is Blake Snell, because that's swing and miss stuff. Yes, he walks batters, but sometimes it just doesn't seem to matter. The only gripe against him would be is his defense. Padres, one of the best defenses in baseball. Is that covering up for him just a tad bit? Yes, but I think it also doesn't matter because of the swings and misses, where it's like, yeah, he needs some help there, but also who cares? Like, he's also striking out like 14 batters a game. So, shouts to Blake Snell. He's been awesome, and he's super fun, and you'll get some good interviews out of him if he does go to your favorite team. Trust me, it's been a delight. For my next pick, I am finally getting a pitcher, and I'm going with a guy who just screams intangibles. I'm not a fan of his, I will say. Not a fan of his. But I do think that he's an effective pitcher. Had a weirdly down year last year after making a lot of noise in the offseason over where he was going to go. But I am going with my first starting pitcher, Marcus Stroman of the Chicago Cubs. Writing seems to be on the wall there, right? Like, it seems like he's kind of almost basically practically hinted at the fact that he kind of wants to be traded, and it's been weird over there with the Cubs. So I think it's going to be Marcus Stroman as the other tier 1 starter. I think that leaves for sure. ERA this year at 2.86. His FIP isn't bad either. 2.6 F4 if you want to go there. He's not striking out a ton of batters, but doesn't make a lot of mistakes, I think, is the big thing with him. And he does have that edge that I think teams, particularly GMs who really buy into that stuff, are going to like. That he's the type of dude that you bring in there, immediately seems like a lion. He's going to rule the locker room. He's going to be a big voice. Again, I'm not a fan of his, but I think as a pitcher in a vacuum, he's very good. So I'm going to go with Marcus Stroman as my first starting pitcher.
Yeah, and at 32 years old, I think it would make sense for the Cubs to trade a guy like that. Cody Bellinger, I think it would be smart for them to keep a guy like Marcus Stroman, early 30s. I wouldn't mind seeing him get moved. But real quick on Blake Snell, he's going to be an impending free agent, Javi. What do you think are the chances that the Padres re-sign him? Because, I mean, their roster is totally expensive, but Blake Snell's been their best starting pitcher probably this year.
AJ Preller, your best starting pitcher is the one that's about to leave. But hey, good thing you locked up Darvish until he's like 45 years old. Yeah, I don't think it's happening. I really don't. I think that we would have at least had rumors if they were thinking of keeping him locked up. And they have so much money, too much money committed to too many players, I think, on this team right now that I think it's unlikely. And that's why he's been such a popular name in trade rumors.
Well, we got 6 more picks here on the draft, and we're going to continue our draft in just a second. Yeah, damn. Yeah, this is a long one, but we have to have a quick word from our sponsor, Sleeper, because if you want to win 100 times your money on daily fantasy baseball, Sleeper is now offering up to 100 times payout for up to an 8-pick contest. Choose as many as 8 players you like, and also choose some of your favorite baseball stats like home runs, strikeouts, hits, and more. Get your picks right, and you can win big tonight. I'm taking I can't take Aaron Judge. He's actually hurt. But I'm going to take Vlad Guerrero Jr. I'm going to take Shohei Ohtani to hit a home run. And guess what? If they do that, I'm going to win a ton of money. Sleeper is a fantasy sports plus real money gaming app focused on bringing people together through sports and gaming. And guess what? When football season rolls around, I use Sleeper for my Dynasty Football League. It's absolutely fantastic to keep all the players saved from year to year. I think I just had a fly into my ear, so sorry if I freaked out there on the YouTube on the YouTube video. But use promo code Locked On, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. And don't forget to catch every D-backs pitch on their hometown broadcast when you download the Sirius XM app and search up either Diamondbacks or Padres on the app. Now back here with Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres. I have him kidnapped doing an hour-long plus draft today because I need the content because I am traveling this week. So Javi, we are on pick. Let me see. I am keeping track. You just took the 10th overall pick with Marcus Stroman as your starting pitcher. That means I'm back on the board, and I am just having so much fun with how this draft is just falling to me. This is another guy who is, I believe, an impending free agent. Let me just double check. Yeah, he is an impending free agent, and I had to double check because it's another one of your favorite players off your favorite team, the San Diego Padres, and I'm taking a reliever now because this Padres team is super expensive, and you can't keep all these free agents, right, Javi? So I got to go with arguably the best closer in Major League Baseball. I just get to add him to my team and my roster on this best available trade deadline target draft. I'm adding Josh Hader, who is once again having a phenomenal season. And for Padres Nation, yeah, you traded for Hader last year, but I don't think you probably gave up a ton. You could go trade him again this trade deadline when he probably has more value than he had last year, because at this time last year, Milwaukee traded him and he had a 4.24 ERA. Well, guess what? He has a 1.03 ERA right now. He's got 22 saves, so you could actually probably get more value than what you gave up for Josh Hader at this time last season. So I'm taking him as my first reliever off the board in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, he should be the leader, the first reliever off the board. He's been excellent despite a weird Padres bullpen, that's been imploding lately. He's been pretty money, like basically borderline, like basically the entire time, right? Like he's been excellent. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to miss him, but it does make sense. And also, he was probably going to be gone after the season anyway, especially with how the Padres had loaded up and they had, gotten, what's his name? Give me a minute. I have to think. What's this guy's name? Hold on. Robert Suarez of the Padres, who they extended in the offseason. So that told me that they were like, okay, cool. We're definitely going to go out here and we're going to try and, be good this year, but we're also ready to move on, I think. So I think that's, it makes sense. And because they're bad, they're probably going to trade him. He's going to be one of the most coveted players probably on the entire market. In general, because he fits everybody and relievers get dealt all the time at the deadline. So that's what I think is going to happen. And he's a really good player, man. I mean, he's a really good player. So I'm curious to see how exactly, like what package will the Padres get for him, because they can still get a pretty penny and it'd be really helpful reloading and heading into next year, I think, for the Padres. So yeah, good pick, sir.
So you don't think he's resigning with the team either then?
No way. I don't see it.
No way. Dang, Josh Hader hit in free agency. And he's only going to be like 31 years old. So he's another guy they could give like a 3-year deal to once he hits free agency and pony up for like, I don't know, $60 million, something like that. All right, Javi, yeah. Next pick for you. Number 12 overall. Who are we going with?
Man. So with Hader gone, I kind of am of the opinion that now it's just like whatever reliever, right? Like I don't really care who I get now at reliever. Just personally. So what, real quick, the wild card has to be a position player, correct?
I think the wild card could be anything, just a person that you want to add to your team.
Okay, so if the wild card can be anybody,
you could add any. Obviously, they got to be a real trade because the DH is going to be that position player. So your wild card could be anybody. Of course, it's got to be a realistic trade deadline target. But yeah, it could be pitcher or position player for that wild card spot.
Of the wild card, let me see here. This is tough, dude. This is honestly, I think this is our toughest trade thing yet. But I'm gonna go with another pitcher just because I don't know exactly what's going on. So with the wild card, I'm gonna go with Lucas Giolito of the White Sox. Weird pitcher, but I think it's interesting that the Dodgers have been interested in him. I think that he has room to grow. I think that he's tinkered with his mechanics and his delivery before, so why not go to a team like the Dodgers who can like show him the right way? He's got some control. His time is up with the White Sox, so I don't know. I believe that he's got a little bit of a second gear left in him. I really do, and I think that team at the deadline, it could go poorly. We saw how poorly it went last year, but I still think Giolito has a lot of value, so I'm going to go with him.
Yeah, Giolito is really good. He's having a really strong season. He was actually going to be my next pick from my wild card as well, just because, we're kind of stepping on each other's toes here a little bit. I mean, he's got the sub 3.5 ERA. He's been a really strong starter mid-rotation guy for the last few years in the Chicago White Sox. I think he's just that perfect guy. If you're a team like the D-backs, you just need one more starter behind a Zach Gallen and a Merrill Kelly. Put a Giolito at your number 3, who is like 28 years old, perfectly fits the timeline with a nice young team on the rise. I think a Giolito could fit the needs of a lot of teams. So I love that pick for your wild card. Kind of stole my wild card pick a little bit right there. So next I could either go, I only have 2 picks left, DH and wild card. So the 2 really, spots on my team that could be filled with anyone. I think I'm going to go with wild card here as well. spiritually, since we didn't take really any superstars in this draft, I'm not going to take Dylan Cease as one of the White Sox starting pitchers because I do think he's probably a trade deadline target, but he's also like a true tier 1 pitcher, even though he's having a little bit of a down year. I think if you were to trade Dylan Cease, you're still expecting like a King's ransom back. So I don't know what the likelihood that he gets moved this deadline, just because his price tag might be too expensive in a trade. I think someone like Giolito's a more realistic target. So I'm not even going to take a Dylan Cease in this draft. I'm going to go with a real guy here who I think should have been the all-star representative for his team. Instead, they chose the worst starting pitcher in Michael Lorenzen, but I'm going with Eduardo Rodriguez in my wild card spot. E-Rod, who has had a nice little comeback after dealing with some heart issues from COVID complications and just haven't really been in the limelight. He's kind of had an up and down career. He's had some good seasons with Boston. He's been all right with Detroit, but this year with Detroit, he's looked really good. I think he's had an all-star level season, even though he didn't make it to the all-star team. I think he should have been the Tigers representative, but he's got a sub-3 ERA. He's got almost double-digit strikeouts per 9. He's got almost a below a 1 whip. I just think overall, E-Rod has had a really strong season, and he's just another one of those guys like a Giolito. If you can add him and he's your number 3 starter in your rotation as the lefty, I think you feel really good as a playoff team.
Yeah. I mean, Eduardo has been really good before. He got really unlucky 2 years ago, back when he was with the Red Sox. Just all the expected stuff was really rough for him, but he's, bouncing back slowly. And he was going through it. I mean, he had some off the field issues last year that kind of prevented him from being, on the team in a lot of ways. Like, we barely even saw him last year. So again, pretty solid though. I like it. I really do. I think that he could be one of those sneaky great pickups, I think, at the deadline, and I'm curious to see what happens with him. But it pales in comparison to my next pick. My next pick.
Who is it? Second
from the team that is having the fire sale. Or at least, I think we agree that out of all the teams in the sport, if there is a team that has a fire sale, it looks like it's going to be this one, and that's the St. Louis Cardinals. I'm going to go with a guy who's been lightly linked to the Yankees lately, and that's Dylan Carlson. Okay. I think that it's tough to say whether or not they will definitively trade this guy. He's still only 24. He's still only 24, and that's the problem, is that a player like, I mean, it's more likely that they would trade Tyler O'Neill in theory, but he's also a lot older. Or is he? I don't even know. How old is Tyler O'Neill? 1 second, please. Let's see here. He's 28. Okay, so he is older. Okay. He's 28. But look, Dylan Carlson, he's got a good walk rate. 243 batting average, 350 on base. He is working on the slugging and stuff. Only a 107 WRC plus, but I think he's super young, and I do like that he was linked to the Yankees. And if that's the case, they might give up a decent amount for him, bring in a young, controllable asset, and the Yankees are just not about acquiring superstars these days because they are pulling a similar strategy to the Red Sox, pretending they're poor. So I'm going to go with him. I know that sounds a little bit icky and weird. It feels like it's one of those reports that's like, okay, yeah, sure. We always get like a yeah, sure kind of guy. I think Nolan Arenado is another one where it was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Someone needed to rack up some engagement today. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's kind of what happened there. But hopefully with Dylan Carlson, maybe they're thinking we need to, what's the word? Reset totally the Cardinals, and they're going to try and trade Dylan Carlson and get a lot. So,
yeah, and we saw these two teams last year make a trade with the Jordan Montgomery, Harrison Bader little trade deadline acquisition. So we've seen these two teams be trade partners before. I think the whole Cardinals experience, like, they have a lot of young talent who's like solid, but I don't know if we feel like any of their young talent's going to pop into stars. Like, they got the Gormans, the Brendan Donovans, they got Dylan Carlson's. Like, they got so many dudes who are between like 22 and 28 years old, but I don't know how many of them you're like, these are true foundational building blocks. These are guys who we can build our franchise around. A lot of them feel like nice supplemental complementary pieces, but I don't know if the Donovans and Nolan Gormans are going to be the guys that bring you into the next generation of great St. Louis Cardinals baseball. Like, they're probably the perfect pieces to have surrounding your Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenados. But if you were to trade the Arenados and Goldschmidts of the world, I don't know if you could build around the team with the other young players that this team currently has. So I'm very curious to see how the Cardinals attack the next couple weeks as we approach the trade deadline. So Dylan Carlson, and that was outfielder for you. They took him?
Yeah.
Okay, outfielder. So this is going to be my last pick of the draft. Number 15th overall, and I already know who I'm going with because I got to go with a DH here. And I'm picking a guy from a team that's in last place, even though they got the championship or bust mentality. This team is absolutely terrible. The Colorado Rockies. I'm taking a little Randall Grichuk. I don't know if I pronounced his last name right. He's just another one of those guys who's not going to be sexy when you see his name, come across the ticker, but he's batting 300. He's got over 800 OPS. Hasn't really shown the pop this year, only 5 home runs in 55 games. But if you look at his time from 2016 to like 2019, 24 home runs, 22 home runs, 25, 31 home runs. Back in 2021, had 22 home runs. So this is a guy with multiple seasons above 20 home runs, despite the power output not being there this season. And the fact he is in Coors Field probably makes you a little bit concerned with the power output this year. But I think this is someone that still swing a super sweet bat, can just be a stabilizing force, and maybe a change of scenery will lead to a little bit more power output for the rest of the year. So I think Randall Grichuk could just be another one of those Soler types who just come in and can make a real difference for you, probably in like that number 6 or 7 spot in your lineup.
Yeah, it makes sense. I believe he was linked to the Yankees as well recently. So this is Grichuk, right?
Yeah, Grichuk.
Yeah. I think he was linked to the Yankees. He's probably the likelier one that gets traded because it's possible that the Cardinals, now that I'm thinking about it, like they reportedly didn't want to trade. It was either him or Jordan Walker in the Juan Soto sweepstakes last year. So maybe they still believe in him a lot. I don't know. It depends. One of those guys is going to go. I just don't know who because they have too many outfielder, I think, with the Tyler O'Neill potentially coming back. So yeah, makes sense, man. Good pick. I don't have much else to add either.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't think there's too much to add on Randall Grichuk. How you gonna wrap us up here, though? Last pick of the draft.
Last pick of the draft. It's my relief pitcher. I think that I could be weird and pick someone like Adbert Alzolay. Maybe he's someone that starts picking up steam, but he's got a good strikeout rate for the Cubs, and he's a reliever. So bottom line, he could be moved. But I'm gonna go with guys who I feel like we know more likely are getting moved, and I'm gonna go with Jordan Hicks again of the St. Louis Cardinals, just because they're probably having a fire sale. It's very likely that he gets moved, and I have to keep that in mind. Scart Barlow and Justin Lawrence are 2 other guys. Young Rockies pitcher, relief pitcher, and then Scart Barlow, who's been very good for a few years now for the Royals. Not as much this year, so maybe that's why he won't get moved. But Jordan Hicks, hey, reading from Bleacher Report, he's got a triple digit sinker and a slider that's generated a 55.8% whiff rate. That's really cool, and something tells me he's definitely getting traded because they have put him in the closer's role lately, partially because Ryan Helsley's been hurt. He was their all-star closer last year, but that tells me, they want to get him some closer experience to show teams that he can do it. Conspiracy Javi, maybe, that he can be a closer, a frontline guy. He's been good before, and I think that he gets moved. So I'm going with Jordan Hicks out of the bullpen. Not as impressive as your guy, but nonetheless, I think could be pretty effective, and it's going to get moved.
Wow, Jordan Hicks wrapping up the draft. I had him definitely as my number 2 closer reliever for this little exercise that we did today. So I'm not mad at all for you. So just to recap the draft, number 1 to me was Cody Bellinger as my corner infielder. Number 2 to you, corner infielder Candelario. Then I took outfielder number 3. You took outfielder McCutcheon number 4. I took Duvall outfielder number 5. You took Rooker DH number 6. I took Brandon Drury, number 7, as my middle infielder. You got Tim Anderson, number 8, middle infielder. Then I took Blake Snell as the first pitcher off the board. You took Stroman, number 10. I took Hader, number 11. You took Giolito as your wild card, number 12. I took Erod as my wild card, number 13. Then you got Dylan Carlson, outfielder, 14. I took Grichuk as my DH, 15. And then you got Jordan Hicks as your closer to round it out. Any final honorable mentions or guys that we didn't talk about today they want to just spend a couple minutes on? Because I just had a couple of dudes down. Like when I looked at the Giants team, they had some players that I didn't know if they were really going to be considered trade deadline targets, because you look at some of the lists like on Bleacher Report, like CBS Sports, like a Jock Peterson or JD Davis. Like the Giants are now ahead of the D-backs in the NOS standing. So I don't know if they're going to just start selling off some of the pieces on their team. But a team like the St. Louis Cardinals, a Jordan Montgomery, a Paul DeJong, I think those are a couple more names to keep an eye on as we approach this trade deadline. Yeah,
for sure. And then some of the relievers that I mentioned, and again, it's possible that a guy like Soto at least even if it's a small chance that maybe the Padres fully commit to selling and blow it up. Totally possible. And there's probably some other guys that we don't even know about. And then, of course, Ohtani, who we barred from this draft, likely because Miller didn't want to take a chance that if he lost the coin toss that I would pick him and automatically win the draft. That's possible. He probably had some nefarious motives behind the scenes, but nonetheless, that is it. And sir, this is a pretty in-depth draft. I'm really curious to see how the deadline goes, man. I think it might surprise people. I thought it was going to be light, but I actually think it might surprise people. We might have some fun stuff. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. And the best player that we didn't talk about that could potentially get moved, because I want to see what the New York Mets do. Maybe Max Scherzer, just because we've seen his name floated around a bunch. I know we were looking at that Talking Baseball trade draft, and they had Scherzer to the D-backs. I think I've even seen Chris Rose do that too, because that would just be fun. Scherzer started his career with Arizona, one of the worst trades of all time to trade away, arguably the best pitcher of our generation. Like the fact that the D-backs traded that man away, and just absolutely terrible. So let's bring him back age 45 when he's having the worst season of his career to really help his D-backs make their deep postseason run. Javier Reyes, I've had him on the pod now for 1 hour and 10 minutes. I'm sure my man is ready to get off. I'm sure he's done talking. He's like, I'm not doing a pod for the rest of the week. But Javi, the listeners need to know, where can they find you online and where can they listen to you?
Find me at LO_Padres or at Javapeno for my personal account. And of course, subscribe to the YouTube. Just cracked 1,000 subs. So please do that. And then until next time, man, everybody just stay faithful. That's just what you got to do. You got to stay faithful.
Yeah, stay faithful. Snell and Hater to the D-backs. Let's make it happen. At Creator Thomas 24 for the personal account on Twitter, or look up Locked On Diamondbacks Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. And of course, check out our YouTube channels, Locked On Diamondbacks, Locked On Padres on YouTube. And please hit that subscribe button. Another week, another draft, another crossover with Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres. Until next week, sir, doses.